I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 9 to the Sky. Now, over the last few episodes, we've dabbled in all kinds of cool stuff, like sieving automation, mystical agriculture, and mystical agriculture automation, mob farms of both types, hostile and passive, storage systems, power, and also now Project E. And so you may be wondering, Chosen, is there anything even cooler that's in this pack? And yes, it was just added to the mod pack, and that is Draconic Evolution. Now, we won't be getting into Draconic Evolution today, but I just wanted to say that it is now in the mod pack, and that is fantastic because it opens up a ton of new things, from teleportation with the dislocator pedestal, and an awesome way, one of my favorite ways of actually teleporting around the world. And it also adds some other awesome stuff, like the ability for you to choose what time of day or weather cycle you want it to be. And then, of course, my favorite, the ability to have a giant decorative power storing ball in the middle of your base. Honestly, one of my favorite things of all time. Now, before I really feel comfortable getting into Draconic Evolution, which I would say is a mid to late game mod, there's still some things that we need to do beforehand. For example, getting into the Allthemodium side of this mod pack, which we haven't yet done. Now, before we start working on the Allthemodium, which we are definitely going to do today, I want to show you another mod that was recently added, and that's thermal energy. And if we thought that this little measly draconic integral component was fantastic, you should see its big brother, the stellar integral component, which is a scale factor of 12 times, just double the rate that this one offers. And it's not that much more expensive, but it does require a tremendous amount of crafting in order to get this thing. So what has that done? Well, that has made these particular farms right here for farming essence even more powerful. So now with that said, before we start working on the automation process of Allthemodium, I do want to talk to you about some cool things that I've been working on around the base. As the base has been something I'm slowly but surely building up. But I want to talk about this. Notice the slight particle effects that you're seeing inside of these reactors. I thought that these reactors kind of stood in their own as kind of boring-ish because there's really nothing going on. So as far as decoration, all we have is this flowing texture of the uranium inside. So we decided to add my own particle effects. And I want to demonstrate how awesome this is, that you can customize your own particles around your base. And to be able to do that, all you need is a logic cable and an effect writer from Integrated Dynamics. So if you set up Integrated Dynamics already, you should have all the materials to make this. But what this allows you to do is it allows you to program a card, which it tells you right here, by the way, is a double. And that double in this case is just going to hold a value that can also be a decimal point. And what that value is going to do, which is right here, by the way, it is going to allow us to choose the velocity of our particles. So by default, just set it to 1 for right now. You can play around with this and make it go up or lower, down or up. It just really doesn't matter all that much. This is just going to choose basically the speed that the particles will go. And I'm going to show you here just by using the totem, which is one of my favorite, by the way. The totem of undying, the particle totem of undying, because this one, for some reason, is one of the very few particles that actually respect collisions with other blocks. But notice this is just emitting particles. But inside that totem, you can go in here and you can modify your offsets. So the offset is going to move the particle from like left to right, up and down, so on and so forth. And you can modify all of these. The particle count is how many particles. If I set it to 100, now there's significantly more particles and probably looks very bad on the, on the camera. But if we go over here to spread, you can raise this up and you can make it a bounding box of 1. So this is like choosing the width that the particles will be contained in. And so I can take this up, the Y value will take it up. And then of course our Z is just going to expand it as well. So now we have like a 2x2, this is gonna be like a 3x3, and it's gonna be 5 tall, basically off this point. And you'll see that the particles now expand significantly further up and also are contained roughly within a 3x3. Now you can turn down how many particles are being produced, and to be able to do that, you need to go into the ticks per operation, and you can change this, for example, to 20, and this will just pulse a particle every second instead of every single tick. But you have to save the settings. So let me go ahead and save that. And then we'll notice this is significantly less. So notice now every second it's pulsing. So just something to keep in mind. This was something that was really cool. I do want to show you the settings that I am using in here. And so let me go ahead and squeeze down. And what I'm using inside of this, I have this placed 2 blocks underneath my current reactor. And I'm using the particle electric spark. And my exact settings are offset of 0.5. I have a Y offset of 7 and then offset of 5. And then my particle count is 100, a spread of 0.5, a spread in the Y value of 1, and then I have a spread of 0.5 in the Z. And then as far as the speed of my particles, I am using a value of 0.5 on my double. So that gives me this nice little particle, like roughly in the center of the reactor, which I thought was a nice little twist. And now it may be subtle, but to me, I don't know, it just adds a little spark, you know, to the build. Now, something you may notice from earlier, I did start expanding up on my little building here, and I'm really enjoying this, just sort of playing around with different ideas. I ended up going 3 blocks back, sorry, from the simulation chambers that we automated a few episodes ago. And this is slowly but surely starting to build up. And I'm just building off the base frame, allowing me to have a nice space on the interior here for a lot of machines that we're going to be automating with, hopefully today. And all of this, by the way, I was hanging out over on the Discord in the voice chats. So be sure to join the Discord if you haven't already. I do chill out in there all the time and I stream my building processes. But I tell you what, I really wish the replay mod actually worked in this. I'm going to have to find a solution to that eventually. Anyone interested in making a replay mod for us Forge creators? You know, maybe. So I guess now it's time to dive into the process of making Allthemodium. And this is going to require us to go through several different steps. So to be able to produce Allthemodium, which is this right here, we are going to need to energize our setup. So we're going to basically be sending refined glowstone from Mechanism, flux infused ingots, which is very easy to make, by the way. This doesn't really require any submachine or anything like that. And then we have Ender IO we're going to need to get into today. And then also a little bit of Forbidden Arcanus. This is simply just a crafting recipe. And then we have soul infused ingots, which thankfully we already have all of the thermal stuff set up. So that shouldn't be too bad. And then we have the one thing that we really needed nether stars for, and that is the nitro the nitro crystals. And this is going to be something that we're going to do today. We're going to automate all of this Energizing Orb with applied energistics, and we're also going to automate all of these other things with applied energistics, and ultimately produce our first Allthemodium ingot, and hopefully get ourselves into some Allthemodium gear. Now first, let's go ahead and talk about how we're actually going to get our applied energistics system to automate all the power stuff, specifically automating this Energizing Orb right here. Well, believe it or not, it's actually super simple to do with applied energistics, because all you need in order to automate this is you just need a pattern provider to just send out the items. However, you do want to go in here and you want to make sure this is set to blocking mode, where it says do not push crafting ingredients if inventory contains a pattern input. So once you have that setting set, all you have to do is place your patterns in here for all of your different ingredients and you're pretty much good to go. Now, of course, you still need a way to get the items back into the pattern provider, or you could just use another channel and use an import bus. But I actually want to use modular routers to pull the item out of here and just send it back into pattern provider. And so all I have to do is take the bottom here and place down my modular router, and we're going to camouflage this later on so you won't even know what it is. And then we just need to tell our puller to pull from the Energizing Orb right here. And so we're going to have it pull from the up, and we're not going to blacklist or anything like that. So any item that is inside of here that is complete will now go into the buffer slot. And then we need to tell this buffer slot where to send the item. And that's where I'm going to use an MK2, which is a wireless version. And I'm just going to right click or shift right click the top, or at least I should be able to shift right click the top of this. You know what? I'm actually going to remove this block. And I bet if I place any other block here and then do it, it should work. Oh, that's right. So if you are trying to use modular routers, that's something I always forget. Modular routers has a problem with you flying. So if you're not flying, it will work. So I have to land and then shift right click. There we go. Now it's going to work. So yeah, if you are actively flying, it just doesn't like that you're doing that. I think you can hold down like shift and space at the same time, but it's very hard to do that in one go. But basically now this is going to pull the item out and it's going to try and send it into the provider up here. And that should hopefully work within this small automation. We just got to get a cable that is basically connected to the top here. And so I will run that cable straight down and we're going to pull the cables out from the pipe here. So I'm going to run through here, and I'm going to have a cable that's running down, and it's going to run all the way over here, and we're going to be able to access more channels. Now, using cables and sending things through pipes, I was thinking about this. I could do it that way, but there's also another really cool add-on in the pack that we've already been using that will allow us to wirelessly take some of our channels and send them over here. And that mod is the extended AE mod. And all we're going to need are 2 of these ME wireless connectors. These are not something that's crazy expensive at this point to make. And then we're also going to need a ME wireless setup kit. So we should be able to take these 2 connectors and just attach them. For example, right here, we can attach it to the side of a controller. And then I should be able to also attach this directly up here or up top. I'm going to go and actually place it in the roof right here so we can add more cables later if we need to. But this is super simple. It should be able to carry the 32 channels from that side. So it's kind of like a P2P, but without the need of any cables at all. So I think I just shift right click to connect that, and then right click to connect this. And it says it's bound to those blocks, I do believe. Or maybe I need to right click here again. Oh, I just right click and then right click the other one. So now it is connected. Notice the color right here. It should be connected. And I don't know, can we do, let's see, cyan? Because I think I had seen where you could dye these. Maybe it's something that you have to do with crafting or something like that. Oh, but this is super cool. It shows you all kinds of detailed information about the blocks that it is connected to and how much power it is using, by the way. These can get kind of expensive on the power usage, so something to keep in mind there as well. But now I should be able to connect this super nice looking cable here, and you can see the 1 channel and device is online. So we are now connected and ready to go. Man, you just gotta love add-on mods to Applied Energistics. Extended AE has got to be one of the coolest, but there's probably even cooler ones that we haven't even gotten into yet. Like, for example, ones that can actually carry RF power through the cable lines and power external machines. Like, for example, if you were exporting into one of these machines, you can also use the Applied Energistics system to store and send your power. I cannot wait to use one of those. Now, something else I can do to make this just a teensy bit cleaner is I can turn this pattern provider into a much smaller version, and it will look a lot nicer instead of it being a solid block. But really, it doesn't really matter all that much. But this right here is a compressed down version. And so now I just have my energizing rod set up, and we should be able to start making our patterns for this. And boy, does Power use a lot of crafting. So I'm going to be very busy diving into Power, getting every single individual thing automated. But the main thing that goes into the Energizing Orb is going to be these basic components that you see right here. For example, energizing steel. It's super simple. When we go to set up a pattern for it, all it takes is just adding it like this, and then we build a pattern. So placing that inside should be all that is needed, but I do have to craft all of these other components and make sure we have crafting recipes for it, because I am going to have to start scaling up my rods. Now, just a little note, if you're setting up these auto crafts as well, for specifically like the energizing rods that have like the ability to store data, like power and so on and so forth, you may end up with some in your system that, for example, have power stored in them. But if you were to set up an auto craft and these require the prior tier, and you have it just set like this without substitutions enabled, it is going to try and just craft a new one instead of trying to use the one that has power. So I do recommend to start getting these set up for auto crafts. But for example, on the basic and so on, you're going to want to make sure substitutions are enabled. This is going to allow it to substitute out this rod with one that potentially has power. And I only recommend using this for very specific use cases, because it can cause some problems later on down the road if you set up some patterns, for example, that use the wrong wood type, and you have substitutions and you have a really nice wood that you can only get through certain means and then it ends up consuming it. Yeah, so be careful what you have the substitutions set to. Now, with just a little bit of upgrading over time, I am now all the way at Nitro, which is the max tier right here. And just to show you the request system, I can go ahead and request a few of the Nitro, and we're going to see this placing in, and then I went ahead and made sure the sender was shift right clicked onto the bottom of the pattern provider, and you can see it working. So this is sending in, this is then pulling it out and putting it back into the pattern provider and it works phenomenally. The only thing I would recommend is maybe some stack upgrades, but once we have enough of this material, the only thing we're really going to be using it for anyways is going to be the Allthemodium, because we can actually make seeds from mystical agriculture for all of these base materials. Now, don't get me wrong, we're still going to need to use this setup, because to be able to even make those seeds, it does require compressed blocks of material. So in doing this, here's an idea. I found that putting the speed upgrades inside of here make this thing go incredibly fast. Let me show you, for example. If I go in here and I want to request the blazing, this is going to be pretty fast. If I do 4 of them, you're going to see it's going to have to request up all the blaze rods, but watch this thing go. Oh my. I don't think we're going to need any other way of doing this, because this is absurdly fast. Now, all of the other ones have just Instacraft, so let me do the Nitro version. There it goes. Oh, at least this one doesn't. Oh my gosh, it just goes so fast you can't even see it crafting. It is doing it though. Like, those are instantaneous. That it is crafting each of these processes. This is going to be done before I know it. So while this is crafting up and I'm working on the seeds, we can now start to work on the Allthemodium, which is going to involve this process here, but we need to be able to auto-craft all of these individual components. And thankfully, the soul infused is something we already have set up. That's just via the induction smelter. So all we really need to do here is we just need to set up 2 autocrafts, one for the soul sand dust inside of our pulverizer, and one for the induction smelter itself to be able to pull these recipes in. And just like this, a simple boop, and then back into this recipe, a simple boop. And now we have both of those technically completed. They just need to go in here, the induction smelter recipe, and then of course the processing pattern. Now that material is ready to go. We can go ahead and move on to the Deorum, and this is just more auto crafting. So I technically need these ingredients, but this arcane crystal dust I do not have right now. So I need to just make that a smelting recipe and throw it inside of my smelter. And I guess now this is where I'm starting to feel and understand the comments that I have seen, where it does say that Chosen's videos essentially turn into how to automate everything with applied energistics or refine storage. I mean, honestly, that's what it does turn into. Oh, and with that, the nitro crystal blocks are now done. So I can now make seeds for all of those essences. That is just absurd. By the way, the nitro essence, these seeds, by the way, these still do require another star in order to complete the 12. But anyways, back to the Deorum ingots, because we just need to make sure we have the autocraft for the Mundabitor dust, or Mundabutter, however you want to call this. All of these things we have coming in, except for Phantom Membranes, which we will have in our system eventually whenever we dive into, I guess when we dive into Applied E, which is going to be a transmutation inside of our terminal. That's going to be fantastic when we have that. But for right now, I do not have this set up, even though it might be a good idea to get our phantom data models eventually. But outside of this, well, we can just craft it like so. And there's another ingot basically ready to go. We just have to put it in our crafters. Now, as far as the flux infused ingots go, those are pretty interesting. These are added by the Redstone Arsenal mod, and the Redstone Arsenal mod has a bunch of different armor and cool equipment that we can use. But to make it, it's just as simple as crushing down some of the gold and then using it. So we could do this. Let's go ahead and get a crushing recipe set up by the pulverizer. And there is another pulverizer recipe. Later on, we can use any other mod. For right now, I'm just going to go with that one we have right beside us. And then I just need to craft it together with some redstone, and then it needs to be smelted. Like, this is about as simple as it gets. This Allthemodium is like at our fingertips right now. The only 2 left now are the ones from Ender.io and then also the refined glowstone for Mechanism, both requiring very specific machines. So to get started with Ender.io, we really need to make ourselves a primitive alloy smelter. This is going to get us started and allow us to be able to make things like dark steel, which is going to allow us to make bigger and better machinery from Ender.io. Now, thankfully in this pack, we get Grains of Infinity as a sifting drop from dust. So Grains of Infinity is definitely not our issue in this pack, but if you wanted to know the actual way of getting it, you essentially light bedrock with flint and steel, and then you wait for it to go out. Once it goes out, it has a chance of producing that grain of infinity. So that's one way of getting it if you weren't necessarily playing this pack. I know, sorry for the information overload. There's just a lot of things that I really enjoy talking about, and that's one of my favorite aspects and mechanics of Ender.io, and we just basically bypass it in this pack. So now, after making our alloy smelter, this one just requires coal. So we should be able to just put some coal in this bad boy temporarily and get it up and running. So dark steel, I probably want to get seeds made for this as soon as possible. Dark steel, let's see. This it's weird that the seeds show up, but the ingots do not. Dark steel from Ender.io. Okay, so we have ourselves a primitive alloy smelter, and it needs coal dust. Now, we can make coal dust in many different ways, but this is definitely something that I want to get in here right away. Now, one way I can get coal dust very quick is through the squeezer. This is going to produce that coal dust you see right here. So I do already have, though, some coal dust prepped up. So I'm going to go ahead and toss this all in, and then we just need to give it the coal, and that is going to start producing this iron. It is pretty slow, but that's where our time in the bottle comes into play. And I can use this to speed this up significantly. And really, I only want this so that way we can get into the bigger and better upgraded Ender.io machines. So after making a few of these dark steel, doing it the manual way, I'm going to go ahead and break this now, because this should allow us enough to be able to make our alloy smelter. So let's go ahead and grab that, and we'll be able to make our first primary Ender.io machine. And just like that, all of our recipes are done, and we now have ourselves an alloy smelter. But I will say the alloy smelter doesn't work just yet. So let me go ahead and place this right here, for example. This machine we cannot use just yet because it does require a capacitor. So we technically need to go into Ender.io, and we would be able to make ourselves any of these capacitors. And they, of course, have their own progression line, making the energetic alloy all the way up into the vibrant alloy. But we have a special thing that we can use. These loot capacitors that we've gotten from chests. And some of these loot capacitors are better than the highest tier capacitor, being a base modifier of 3. So if we look through here, we can see these base modifiers. This one is 3.8. That one's pretty high. Do we have any that are higher than that? 3.6. And so this one is actually faster than the base capacitor supports. However, it is going to use more power, but at this point, I'm not really worried about power. So I'm going to grab a gate to power this bad boy. And then we just need to tap into our current setup here. And we get to automate this the same way as everything else. This has a really good setup. We set this into alloy only mode. And then I'm going to go into the IO configuration of the machine. And I'm going to set this to push and pull. And thankfully this machine will auto pull and will also auto send out of the machine. And so with this, I should be able to just place this on here and then connect this right up. Just like so. So this is all ready to go. Actually, I don't even need to hook a cable to this. That's right, because these actually carry connected to it like that. So all I have to do is now is put my patterns in here for my Ender.io machines, and that specific pattern is going to be the energetic alloy recipe. So I can go ahead and make that now, and voila! The recipe is already ready to go. Okay, so energetic alloy should be able to go in here, and we're going to be able to see how fast this is going to operate here in a second. So let's go ahead and request some alloy. Now, I do want to make some of the other alloys from this mod, but that's the primary one for right now. So let's go ahead and request like 10 of them so we can see how fast this machine actually processes. So that's with a higher than base tier upgrade, and you can see it is as fast as it's going to get. That's just unfortunate at how fast it currently is. It's not that fast, especially compared to all these other machines. And so it is what it is. I mean, the only thing you could do is potentially add way more of these machines, essentially wrapped around the pattern provider, to increase the amount that it can do per crafting operation. And so now it's time for the only other thing left on the list of things to make the Allthemodium, and that is going to be refined glowstone. So this requires us to make a osmium compressor, which is a very interesting machine. And inside of JEI, it's not so straightforward. So let's go ahead and add this to our to craft list. And I think I have most of these things. So I can go ahead and make these up real quick. And steel casing, I do not have automated just yet, which is kind of interesting that I don't have this, but we do have all of this ready to go. Eventually we are going to dive way deeper into mechanism, but for right now, just getting the osmium compressor up and running is going to be great. So now that we have this machine, basically what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to feed it osmium into this slot, and that will get auto converted into a liquid. And then we need to insert the product right here and allow this to send the result back. And thankfully, just like all of these other mods, Mechanism is very nice when it comes to the actual automation processes. So to fully automate this, we just need a pattern provider on the top for this example, and then we're going to use an export bus to constantly send osmium into the back here. And then I just need to link these together and make sure they have power and they are connected to one another. And then back here, we are going to tell this to send osmium. So we'll put that ingredient in. And then what we need to do is configure this machine. So these side inputs are pretty cool. You can actually move this around so you can see the individual colors here. We're going to dive a little bit just into the item configs, but these over here would allow you to go to different tabs, for example, gases and such like that, because you could send a gas directly into this. We're going to allow the machine to convert it for us. So let's go ahead and first just clear all slots so we can visually see this a little bit easier. Now on the back, we can see our exporter for osmium. We just need to switch this until it is in that yellow color of extra, this bottom slot right here. And you can see it's already inserted and now has converted into osmium. And now for the top, we want to make this the input, but if we set this to input output and allow auto eject on, it will allow this to be fully automated where the result will go back into the pattern provider, ultimately finishing off the craft. See, it doesn't get any simpler than this, and it is so nice. Now all we need to do is simply make our pattern. And since we already have some of the products of this pattern, all we're going to have to do is make sure we remove the osmium gas from here, and we're just left with sending glowstone in and getting a product back. And that's all we need for this to be ready to go. Put the pattern in, and now I should be able to go into Mechanism and request up a few of those, just like so. And this is going to toss it in and is going to start crafting. Of course, we do need to get some power on here. Otherwise, this is not going to work. So I'm going to grab a gate. I really love these gates, by the way. And then I'm just going to go ahead and get that running like you see here. It's just going to keep constantly processing and sending it back in. Now, Mechanism has its own machine upgrade sort of process that you're going to end up going through eventually, and we're going to do. And the easiest way to upgrade your machines is by using a basic tier installer or using these tier installers as you go up, and you shift right click on the machine, and now this is a factory. And notice we can evenly now distribute all of these, and it also keeps all of your configs. So we can continue to upgrade our machine into higher and higher tiers as we go. But much like all of the other stuff, this also has seeds. So by that point, it all depends on what we're going to need for automation, because this may not be one of them. And now with all of those ingredients ready to go and auto-crafted, that means we now have support for auto-crafting Allthemodium. And that is going to lead us in some really cool things. So now that we have the ability to craft this, what can the Allthemodium ingot do? Well, the nuggets can be turned into all kinds of different really powerful foods. For example, the Allthemodium apple and carrot. And then we also have the ingots use. The ingots can be used to make an upgraded iron furnace, which turns it into an Allthemodium furnace, which is way faster than our netherite, which is already fast as it is. And we also can make the upgraded smithing template, allowing us to make Allthemodium gear, which looks really cool. And then we can also make the tools. So we have all of this, and I'm sure there are more recipes to come as this pack is still slowly but surely being worked on. So I guess now the only thing left to do is to get it crafted up inside of our Energizer. And that's as simple as opening up our crafting terminal and crafting up the Energizing Orb recipe, requesting all of these items and expecting 3 as an output. And that just needs to go right in here. And then the next thing you know, this thing is going to Instagram. It's going to be so fast we won't even be able to see it. But if we go Allthemodium, we should be able to find that now and request like 10 of them. And it, for some reason, says we're missing charcoal. Oh, that's right, because of the moon beater. But now I do have a solution to that charcoal. It's actually really easy and something that is sort of exclusive to Applied Energistics and how it can be done. So when we go to actually make charcoal, which we are going to need for the Deorum, right? We can utilize the Philosopher's Stone to convert regular coal. Now, when you do this, you need to make sure substitutions are enabled, and you should be able to craft now with the Philosopher's Stone. I don't believe this is something you can do with refined storage. So this would be something that is exclusive to Applied with the way that it actually handles these sort of crafts. So with that, we should be able to now craft this, and that is an amazing thing that we can do. So if we put this in, now whenever we craft the Allthemod, oh boy, we should be able to now craft 10, and let's grab this. Make sure we do this correctly. Craft 10 of those, hit next, start, and it should spit all of those items. Oh, that's right, into here. If I put this in the, of course, correct place. There we go. And it just crafted them all so fast. Oh, that is too fast. Okay. And there's our Allthemodium. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this request right here because we have enough. And without further ado, there's our Allthemodium ingot. That was fun. Hopefully this was incredibly helpful for you in getting the Allthemodium and doing it as quick as possible. This setup right here is insanely fast for crafting things from the power mod with the Energizing Orb. So definitely recommend checking that out and building the same thing in your own world if you haven't already. And guys, if you did enjoy today's episode, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and well, give this video a huge thumbs up. Also, comment down below if there's any tips and tricks that you'd like to share with everyone else. And with that being said, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Yemi. Thank you so much for your amazing support, by the way, by choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. I thank you so very much. And of course, guys, I will see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye!